Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nine Lives, the podcast where we dive into the transformative journeys of self-discovery, growth, and the messy, beautiful process of living multiple lives in one. I'm Cassia, your host, and I am so excited that you are here. Okay, today I am going to be talking about everything you need to know about trail running, being confident outdoors, and reconnecting with nature. This episode comes off the back of a trip I just got back from. I went with my friend Zana, friend of the show, to Fuerteventura in Spain, in the Canary Islands. I'd never been to the Canary Islands before, so it was really lovely to go and see that volcanic craziness. And I felt like I was running on Mars, but I think I kind of take for granted how normal that is for me to go and scale up a volcano, run around an island. And because Anna and I are quite, she's obviously, it's literally her job to lead women through the wilderness, and I've sort of made it mine to lead myself through the wilderness, and we kind of take for granted just how easy that comes to us and how normal it is to just gear up and get out there. But I do get a lot of questions about how to be in nature, how to feel confident in nature, how to get into trail running. You know, these are all things that happen so slowly and naturally for me that I didn't really think twice about it. But my favorite thing in the world is that feeling of, I don't know, just kind of self-reliance that you get when it's just you and your pack and the trail and there's no one around and all you have is some electrolytes and a pack of dates. You know, you don't know what you're going to find. You don't know what you're going to see. It's the most freeing and exciting and wonderful feeling in the world. But for so many, I think it's a little scary, which I guess doesn't, maybe I'm just foolish, but it doesn't really cross my mind. I think I've always been so adventurous growing up that I just, I don't think twice about it. Perhaps I should think twice more when I'm running through the jungle, but yeah. I wanted to talk everything outdoors and outdoorsy and what it means to be an outdoorsy person, because I think there's quite a binary on this, and I think that, you know, I know that a lot of people kind of, the outdoors is a space where there's a kind of clique of people who perhaps are not as welcoming to young women who also like makeup or also like to dress up and go on the trail. And I think it's really important to remember that nature is for everybody. It doesn't matter how, you know, hippie you are or how crunchy you look. Obviously, I'm probably not the most hippy-dippy looking human being. And to look at me, you might not think that she likes being alone for 3 days in the woods, but I do. And I actually had a really hard time with my own self-image through the years that I was struggling. Obviously, there was a lot of masking going on with a lot of makeup and a lot of clothing, and I always felt like the outdoors were for like different people and they weren't for me, and that I didn't really belong in that space. But I've learned now that we are nature. We are all nature. You know, it's not something that's separate from us. It's not somewhere we go to visit. We are nature and we belong in nature. And I think we really are our happiest and best selves when we're moving through nature. Nature changed my life in many, many ways. Many ways. It was the key to unlock my transformation because it was something that felt incredibly intrinsic to my soul, my goals. But the reason that I love trail running and nature so dearly is because there are no mirrors on the trail. And the different disciplines of training I have tried, and I've tried them all. I've tried CrossFit, I've tried Olympic lifting, bodybuilding, I've tried Muay Thai. There are lots of mirrors, or there are always mirrors involved in those disciplines. But in trail running, there is no image of yourself. There is no perception of yourself. There is no bodily object attached to the goals, the outcomes of what you're doing. You're just moving through nature. And when I'm running in nature or running on the trail, I feel like I'm just a floating soul. Here we go. I feel that I'm just a floating soul moving through the world in the way that I was meant to, and I don't think about this. Whereas when I'm at the gym, as much as it's fun to like go get pumped up, I'm thinking a lot about this. You know, I'm thinking about how I look and how these movements make me look, and it's a strange space where I feel quite self-conscious and awkward and weird. But when I'm on the trail, I don't feel that at all. It's a sublime, liminal, wonderful love letter to the world when I'm running in nature. And I hope everybody gets to give themselves that gift. And you don't have to run through it. You can just walk through it. You know, Xana is an incredible trail walker. She's a hiker. Sorry, that's the word, trail walker, hiker. She's an amazing hiker. And being with her was actually really interesting because she took me to do hiking, which I don't do. I just want to run. And I took her to do trail running, which she doesn't do. She wants to hike. So it was really fascinating to kind of like swap our worlds around and see. And hiking's really hard. We hiked up the highest volcano in Fuerteventura, and it was so beautiful. And I had my face covering on, and obviously I was pretending to be in Dune. I was at the top like, the desert takes the weak. May thy knife chip and shatter. So it was a really cool day. But I have felt that in so many ways, nature has made me who I am today because it made me brave. And brave, after hope, is the second step to everything we do in life. If you have hope, then you have bravery, and then you have action. Those are the 3 steps to anything. That's what we've discussed a lot on this podcast. So I've read lots of papers. I've read loads and loads of papers, and I've done a lot of research for this episode because I wanted to do it justice, because it's probably the topic that I'm the most passionate about. And I wanted to start with a little quote from an author that I could not find credit for, because it's just a little quote that's written on the back of a napkin. But it says, "I have an internal shrine, it glows and is very warm." And it reminded me a lot of what being in the natural world does for human beings, both on a scientific, physical and spiritual level. We all have an internal shrine, whether that's your soul, your spirit, or whatever you want to call it, your energy. We have that internal shrine, and when humans connect with nature, I believe that it glows and it is very warm. And I have found myself in times of trouble, and you know, there was a lot that happened in my life over the last 6 months that's made me really defensive and very angry. And I'm not that kind of person, like I'm just not. But unfortunately, when you're being bullied or whatever, it can be really difficult not to become angry and defensive. And nature really has always been the salve that really calms me down and takes me back to that warm and loving person, because I am able to kind of realize that we are nature, and that's all there is, and that's all there ever will be, and all my problems seem to sort of disappear when I'm hugging a tree. So yeah. There is a paper by Sarah Pilgrim and Jules N. Pretty, which is called Nature and Culture, Rebuilding Lost Connections. It's an amazing book, and I wanted to summarize a little bit of the ideas in it for you, because I think that lost connections is something which is perfect to open up with, because so many of us do lose connection to nature, and we do believe that it's not for us. So this idea is beautifully explored in the book Nature and Culture, Rebuilding Lost Connections. They remind us of something powerful. Nature and culture aren't separate. They're deeply connected, like 2 sides of the same coin. The authors show how cultural traditions and practices often emerge from and depend on ecosystems. For example, traditional farming methods, festivals tied to seasonal changes, and even sacred natural sites all reflect how humans and the environment shape each other. But here's the problem. As modern life pulls us away from nature, we are losing this connection, and fast. Pretty and Pilgrim highlight that this disconnection isn't just bad for the environment, it's bad for us too. They quote studies showing that spending time in nature improves mental health and strengthens our sense of belonging. Yet urbanization and industrialization are making this harder than ever. So how can we rebuild that connection? You can start small, you can spend more time in the outdoors where you can learn about plants and animals in your local area. You can support local conservation projects or even Indigenous-led efforts that honour both nature and culture. As Pilgrim and Pretty put it, reconnecting with nature isn't just about saving the planet, it's about saving ourselves too. So if we continue into a bit of a deep dive into this article about women and the outdoors, I know that the listenership of this podcast is 20% male, and I'm so grateful for that. And everyone's welcome, all folks, all genders, all people. But do bear with me on this one, gentlemen. This one is a little study for the girls, because I do think that there is a slight more bigger barrier to entry for fear of safety, for things we are maybe, things that we are made to feel afraid of that we don't need to be afraid of. Men are often seen as these outdoor warriors who can just bushwhack their way through things and make a tent and survive in the wild. And I think women obviously can do it too. And there was a lot of that for me, thinking back on before I did become so outdoorsy. I thought, oh, well, I'm a girl and, I can't do these things alone, or I can't be brave outdoors or build a tent or do all the things I do. And I've learnt now that of course we can. There's no difference between us and men. And yeah, so the article, The Case for Evidence-Based Outdoor Recreation Interventions for Girls, Helping Girls Find Their Voice in the Outdoors, which was published in the Education Scientists by MDPI, delves into the role of outdoor recreational activities in fostering empowerment and confidence in adolescent girls. Because that really is that pivotal moment, I think, which is why things like Scouts and Brownies are so fantastic for young women. So fantastic. And had I had the confidence growing up and I wasn't being bullied or struggling so much with my confidence, I think that would have been life-changing if I'd have been a brownie. It argues for a gender-specific approach to outdoor programs to address the societal and psychological barriers that often deter female participation. Below are some of the key points in detail. So the challenges that girls face in outdoor recreation is obviously societal gender norms. So traditional gender roles discourage many girls from participating in outdoor recreational activities, often portraying them as unsuitable or unsafe for females. Then there is lack of exposure and opportunities. Girls are less frequently exposed to outdoor activities, resulting in reduced skill acquisition and competence compared to boys. Self-perception and fear. Many girls internalize fears of failure or inadequacy, particularly in unfamiliar or male-dominated outdoor environments. And the last one is body image concerns. Pressure from societal beauty standards can negatively impact girls' willingness to engage in physically demanding or messy outdoor activities, which is so heartbreaking, the fact that we make these boxes for girls to fit into, and that within that box, mud and dirt and blood and hair and sweat, for some reason, does not belong. And I can tell you, as someone who has obviously been through a really big fitness journey and throws herself about in the woods and the jungle a lot, that all of those things belong in a woman's life and a woman's lifeblood and our way to move through the planet. I think people forget often, probably because of social media and other things, magazines, films, whatever, that we are animals, okay? We are animals in nature. And we have things like stretch marks, loose skin, hair, folds, rolls. We should be covered in mud, getting wet and soggy. We should bleed when we cut, when we graze our knees from falling over on the trail, and, not feel that we have to hide it. Something that fascinates me the most is how much horror there is when I post photos of me coming back from a run on the trail, and I sweat a lot when I run because I run far, and I'm really sweaty everywhere, my crotch, my armpits, everywhere. And it's so funny to watch the sort of conversation happen, this sort of like horror that I have sweat at my crotch, and that people are saying, gosh, thank you so much for showing this. I get really sweaty too, and it's so nice to see it normalized. And I don't know if it's just the fact that I am so outdoors that maybe I'm just chronically offline or whatever it is, but I do not see that we should have to normalize stuff that's normal. There are things that, need to be normalized and things that are a little bit more tricky to bring to the forefront of people, but sweat on a woman, mud or messiness, or, it shouldn't have to be normalized. That is normal. You are an animal and you will perspire when you move. But those sorts of ideas keep women away from nature, because we believe that we have to look a certain way while we're performing a certain task, or that we can't possibly be messy or, grimy or smelly, or, all the things that camping and ultra running or trail running probably remind you of. And I think letting go of that idea of like, you don't have to perform for anyone while you're doing this. There is no camera watching you. There's no mirrors. There's no one to perform for. It's just you and the space that you're creating for yourself. I think letting go of those ideas is really important. And, you can also express your femininity in that world. Like I still put on some mascara to go scale a mountain. Sometimes if I feel like it, there's no issue. I think letting the two coexist is very important, and knowing that you can be both feminine and glamorous and enjoy expressing your womanhood in that way, but you can also be covered in mud and blood on the trail and be taken seriously as an outdoor athlete or an outdoor person is really important. And bringing people down because they like to express their femininity or because they don't want to express their femininity, just no. Everyone is just allowed to do what they want as they fucking please, okay? I get so worked up about this. For example, we look at athletes like Courtney DeWalter. She's incredible, dude. She wears long shorts. That's her whole thing. She's obviously very, she doesn't wear makeup. She's just a cool dude on the trail. Amazing ultra runner, probably one of the best of our generation. And she's taken incredibly seriously because her performance is incredibly serious. She is a serious athlete. But then there are some other women who, they like the makeup. They like to wear matching little pink outfits at their races. And I noticed that the perception of them is just so different. And it's a really interesting thing to watch, that the more feminine you express yourself, the more hate you get. And it, like I say, my Instagram is just a social experiment for me, and it's fascinating. But I do notice that if I'm ever like kind of gussied up running, that there's a real conversation around like how unserious this is, and how, I'm not doing something properly, or I don't belong in nature, and all this really funny stuff that I just watch unfold. Or if I'm, really super covered up and not wearing makeup and look a bit messy, there's none of that conversation. I'm still the same person. I just decided to dress up that day and, go be with the trees. And it's a really fascinating, it's a fascinating conversation around femininity in the outdoors. I think that it isn't really had. And sadly, I think a lot of the pushback comes from other women, which is really, it's always really breaks my heart to see that, because, I don't know, I love being out and seeing girls at races or girls on the trail that are all in, glitter on their face and a pink running vest. And I just think, it's so cool. It's so cool. And it makes people angry, and I can't put my finger on why, but I think femininity does make people angry. That is a separate podcast episode that might not belong in this season. I went on a tangent there, I'm sorry. But basically what I'm saying is is that body image issues do not belong, but your self-expression and your femininity belong on the trail, and you deserve to feel welcomed by yourself and by other people. And don't let anyone ever tell you anything different. Like, just block it out. Block out the voices in your head, block out the other voices. So there was an amazing program called the Finding Your Voice program, and it was an intervention specifically targeted at middle school girls, which is a critical developmental stage where gender disparities in confidence and participation often widen. Middle school, I believe, is the beginning of secondary for us UK people, so like year 7. Program goals were provide a safe and inclusive environment for girls to explore outdoor activities, foster a sense of empowerment through skill building and goal achievement, challenge societal perceptions by normalizing girls' participation in the outdoors. The program included skill-based challenges like rock climbing, hiking, team building exercises, and reflective discussions on self-empowerment. They also had a mentorship component, so participants work with female mentors who model resilience and success in outdoor activities. And something I am doing this year, which has been probably my dream since I started this career, is to go and talk in schools and work with young women to talk to them about being active, but make it cool and make it fun. Talk to them about the power of nature. Talk to them about early signs of addiction and what it means to move and what it means to be a brave, badass woman in this world. Because I have always wanted to be in schools and talk in schools, because I would have loved to have seen someone like me who is I was very alternative growing up, and I would have really loved to have seen an alternative woman come in and talk about, you know, the power of nature and being able to be in that space. And that's why role models and mentors are incredibly important. And I know I've said this before, but your mentor does not need to know that you exist. You can choose mentors that don't know you. And while I have amazing mentors and people that I do know, there are also people who I just follow online or read their books and they don't know I exist. For example, Courtney Walsh doesn't know I exist, who's another one, the Yellow Runner. I think I've mentioned them before, but you know, they're brilliant women who I really look up to. And whenever I'm feeling a bit down in the dumps about things, I go on their pages or leaf through their books or listen to their podcasts, and I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah, I can do it too. And I think it's super important to have that those mentors there for you to show you that, you know, you can do it too. And of course, for the men listening, you know, obviously we've got people like David Goggins and, you know, all the other brilliant, bright and wonderful, brave men. There are so many of them that we can look up to as well. So the findings from this research assessing the program demonstrated measurable improvements in the participants' self-efficiency. So girls reported feeling more capable of facing challenges. They had great comfort in nature, so increased familiarity with outdoor settings led to greater enthusiasm for future participation. And they had improved leadership skills, which is really cool. Many participants showed increased willingness to take initiative in group settings. Which is fantastic, because that is what makes us brave, I think, to be physically capable and to show yourself time and time again that you are physically capable of doing really brave and bold things makes it so much easier to become a leader later in life. And that's why trail running and racing makes me a better coach and a better business owner, because I can take a leadership role a lot easier when I know that I could survive on my own for 4 days in the wild. If I get a bit of a tricky email from someone, I'm like, I think I can handle this. I think I can stand up for myself on this one. So it really leaks into every part of your life, I believe. And the surveys and interviews revealed that these experiences carried over into other aspects of the girls' lives, such as academics and personal relationships. So they recommend for future interventions for schools, for people growing up, they should tailor outdoor programs to address gender-specific needs and barriers. They should incorporate elements of mentorship, skill building, and emotional reflection. And they want to conduct more long-term studies. There's a brilliant young people's initiative that gets them into what we call forest school. And forest school, I mean, what a dream, first of all. You could be a forest teacher. How cool is that? That's the dream. And I have, obviously my fiance works in conservation, but most of my friends work with wildlife and in the National Trust or in lots of different places. I seem to always just have ultra trail running friends, conservation friends, and they teach these kids how to fell trees, build fences, survival skills, how to know what mushrooms are good to eat, what mushrooms are not good to eat, the names of trees, the names of leaves, just making them really aware of what nature is. And it's a really lovely project, and I can see it I see forest schools now coming alive all throughout London, and I really hope to be part of the initiative that drives that growth this year. That's a huge goal for me. Okay, I rambled on about girls, so all right, let's start with the question: why trail running? What makes it so special compared to running on a treadmill or on a city sidewalk? Well, trail running is more than just exercise, it's an experience. Imagine winding paths surrounded by towering trees, the sound of your feet crunching on dirt, and the crisp, fresh air filling your lungs. It's a workout for your body and a retreat for your mind. But beyond the aesthetics, trail running offers unique benefits, and I'd like to tell you my favorite ones. So number one is mental clarity. Trails force you to focus on the moment. Watching for rocks, roots, or changes in terrain keeps your mind engaged and helps reduce stress. So this is something I have noticed. It's why we call it technical trail. So when the trail is technical, it means that maybe there's a bit of scree, or there's roots, or there's a lot of mud, there's like rivers you need to cross. And I can't tell you how quiet that makes my brain when the trail is very technical. I ran in Zion National Park around the North Rim, and it was probably one of the most beautiful trails I've ever been on in my life. And I always do these things alone because that's just how I like to do them. And I remember the trail was like up and down these mountains, then like round these red rocks, and then through this river, and then suddenly there was snow and there was scree that I had to climb up, and then I like had to go down this bit, and my brain is quiet, and I don't have a quiet brain. So it is the only time that I feel that I am able to just really quiet down, because every part of my nervous system, my body, my muscles, everything is helping me move through that place and not fall over. I do fall over. Every trail I fall over. Okay, number two, it's a full body workout. So uneven surfaces activate muscles you might not use on flat ground, making it a great way to strengthen your core and improve balance. And yeah, I don't see that discussed enough, is how strong you have to be a trail runner. Like my core is very strong because I am constantly balancing and moving through places that are difficult to move through. And I love that that's like my core workout. It's like climbing trees. I think that's the coolest thing ever. Instead of like, what was that lockdown? I can't even, I'm not going to know, but there was a lockdown thing that was like abs in 5 days or abs in 7 days, and everyone was doing it. And how cool to be like, I don't do those programs, but I do run like, through a really technical trail, and that's my abs in 5 days. Like that's really such a lovely way of thinking about it. So obviously, number three is connection to nature. Trail running lets you escape the urban grind and reconnect with the natural world. Research shows that spending time outdoors can boost your mood and even enhance creativity. Very true. Every word of the book I wrote was inspired by the trail. All the poems and the drawings and everything I do is inspired by nature, the interconnectivity of it. My mom retrained as a jeweler later in life, and all of her jewelry collections are inspired by nature, and they're all very natural shapes, and there's nothing more inspiring for a creative than nature. Nature and relationships are probably the two, right? Love and the planet. Okay, so now let's talk about how to get started with trail running. So if you've never run a trail before, it can feel really intimidating. But trust me, you don't need to be a professional athlete or an outdoor expert to enjoy it. Here is how to begin. So gear. I'm asked about this a lot, and I wanted to do a little chat about gear and how to be wise with your gear. The first thing you'll need is a good pair of trail running shoes. Unlike regular shoes, trail shoes have a grippy sole designed for uneven terrain. I famously forget my trail shoes at all times because there's a shoe called the Adidas Pro 3s that I am so in love with. So I heel strike and they really put me on a neutral foot, and I feel like I'm flying when I wear those shoes, and I should not wear them as much as I do. Please don't do what I do, because they're carbon plated and they're not good for the trail at all. And yet I'm still there, like, here I am scaling a mountain in my carbon plates, idiot. There are loads of brilliant brands. Hoka are fantastic. They have a shoe called the Speed Goats that are really, really good. I think I've done all of my big ultra. Yeah, I've done them all in Speed Goats. They're fantastic. They're a little pricey. That's the only thing. So one thing I would say is Puma and Adidas. If you go to their websites, so this is what I did when I started. Go to their websites and toggle trail and then low to high. They should have shoes on there for 30 to 40 quid. If you still find it difficult to get a pair of trail shoes even at that price, usually there are outlets in the UK. We have so many outdoor big shops, and usually they have outlet sections that sell trail shoes for quite cheap. Charity shops are another good option. Obviously, secondhand shoes are tricky. I know that gear is, I'm often a little bit like hesitant to talk about it because like it's such a privilege to work with people who just like obviously provide me with gear, or I'm able to afford it, and I know that that's a massive privilege. I will caveat that with I started trail running without a vest. I started trail running without supplements. I started trail running without fancy shoes. I had a pair of Nike, they were not running shoes, and they took me from, sitting on my sofa to running 15 kilometers on trail. And I just had like an old bum bag, like a secondhand bum bag that I shoved like a water bottle, which I would usually carry, my phone and some sweets. And that was really all I started out with. So, there is a big explosion in obviously like trail aesthetic has become really fashionable. And with that comes, unfortunately, the commercialization of nature and the commercialization of run clubs and of this sport, which makes me really uncomfortable. Sometimes when I see it, I just think, so opposite. Why is capitalism coming into this? Like, this is not why we're doing this. But I understand that that's how the world works, and the world goes round and round, and we got to keep, I understand. It's just sometimes it's a little like, whoa, okay. And obviously like the vests are getting more and more expensive and more technical, and like it's crazy. I have 2 vests. I've always had 2. They've lasted me long enough. I put them through the washing machine, and they're fine. They're from Solomon. They're brilliant. Anyway, sorry, I'm really going on a tangent there. What I'm saying is you don't need all the gear to begin. You need bravery to begin and then get the gear later. I have a rule, as I'm neurodivergent and I pick up hobbies and drop them like that, that I have to do something for, is it 4 weeks or 6 weeks? 4 weeks before I buy the gear. So obviously I started Muay Thai and I've kept it up and I'm still doing it. But I forced myself to wait a month before I bought myself a pair of gloves or any wraps, because I knew that like, what, I'm going to go buy a fancy pair of gloves and then I'm not going to keep it up. No. So maybe you could give that a go and see if you like trail running. Get some really cheap gear, or the very least that you need, because really all you do need is your body and your willpower. And then if you, like I did, so I would treat myself like, okay, when you get to 15k, then we'll get a proper pair of trainers. Actually, I waited till a half marathon until I got a pair of trainers, because I didn't know that running shoes were a whole world. And then I googled running shoes and I was like, oh Christ, okay, what is a carbon plate? What is a Nike Zoom Tempo? I don't know. But then I did get my first proper pair, and I was like, right, this really changes the game. I think I took like half an hour off my 15k time or something the first time I ran in proper shoes, so it does make a difference. Okay. Wear lightweight, moisture-wicking clothing, and don't forget layers if the weather is unpredictable. So layering is really, really, really important when it comes to running in the cold or even in the warm or in different terrains. My big thing with cold weather running is I prefer small, lightweight layers. So I'll do like a thermal, then a t-shirt, then a long sleeve, then a jacket, but they're all really thin. So whenever I need to, I can strip them off and shove them in the back of my pack. And I have my little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle hump on the back, which is really funny because the bigger the hump, the further I'm going. I'm just there like, no. So yeah, small, lightweight layers is much better than running in a puffer jacket, for example. Although sometimes, of course, if you're running in the Arctic, there's going to need to be like proper technical gear. Things like heated gloves are brilliant. Gymshark do a really nice pair of lightweight gloves, but then you can put little hand warmers in, you can slide them in, which is always really lovely. Little tips like that, but I would say, small layers that you can fold up, tie around your waist, put in your pack. Trail running isn't about going fast either. I mean, for some people, obviously it is, but for me, it's all about stopping whenever you please to like pick a flower or look at a view or talk to an animal, and that's another reason I like it so much, because there's no pressure on time. The pressure is just enjoy, it's just like be with nature and be in nature. So you can stop whenever you like to take off your clothes or rearrange yourself. It is harder to run with all the gear and carrying everything, but you ain't got to go anywhere fast. And you can stop whenever you like to make yourself comfortable. I'm constantly unearthing wedgies and tying things around myself and rehydrating and eating things and just stopping because I fancy it. So just, don't put pressure on yourself to have to like move really fast with all of this gear on you. So obviously then there is hydration, so hydration pack or handheld water bottle. I mean, it depends. Like some people really love those like handheld round water bottles. I see a lot of people out with them. I like being hands-free, so I prefer a pack personally. So I use Solomon packs. I know that everybody does them. There's some incredible running packs on Amazon. Say what you will about Amazon, but needs must, because the Solomon ones are pretty expensive, and there are some on Amazon for like 20 quid that are brilliant. They've got 2 packs for your bladders, and then a pack in the back for your bladder if you need a big one. Some races that I've done, they only allow you to start when you've got like, I think it's like 2 liters or 3 liters of water on you already. So you'll need like a big bladder at the back and then a straw that comes around. But for most trails, it's perfectly fine just to have 2 little hydrations here. And it doesn't need to be a fancy pack, They're the soft ones and they fit in. And then in these hydrations, I always have 1 electrolytes and 1 just normal water. And then food-wise, obviously gels. A lot of people love gels. A lot of people love trail mix, snack bars, whatever you fancy. My stomach can't handle gels or any kind of like sweetened or very artificial stuff. It just makes me feel sick when I'm running. So I have dried fruit. So I always do dried mango. I do nuts. I do like natural sweets with like fruit juices and things like that. They seem to work really well for me. And then if you're going on a really long trail, you want to make sure that you've had a really proper breakfast, like proper breakfast. I'm not talking coffee and a protein bar. That's not a breakfast. I'm talking big bowl of hearty oats or a big bowl of pasta the night before and oats in the morning, just making sure that you're fueled and you're ready to tackle the adventure ahead of you. 9 Lives podcast is proudly sponsored by Pure Sport. As you know, rituals and routines have been a huge part of my own wellness journey and transformation, and I have been using their supplements since the very beginning. Things like their mushroom complex, magnesium, and the muscle balm have honestly changed the game when it comes to my recovery and performance. You can use the code 9lives at checkout for a discount. Thank you so much, Pure Sport, for sponsoring this podcast. So choosing the right trail. A lot of people ask how I find my trails. I use an app called All Trails or Komoot. Those are two really brilliant ones. All Trails is fab. Whenever I land in a new place, I just click on All Trails and I try and find, where the trail that I like the look of is. It's where I've found like all of my favorite runs around the world. But it's really important to start with beginner-friendly trails, so look for well-marked paths and gentle elevation changes. Local trail guides can also really help you as well. People who are outdoorsy are usually really keen to get other people into the outdoors, hence why I'm sat here doing this. So, ask people at trailheads, ask people at the National Trust or national parks. They will love to talk about this because we are all such nerds. And things like elevation. Obviously, for me, the more elevation, the better. I love climbing mountains. I love climbing while I'm running. I'm really built for hills because, I'm 5'2". I've got strong old legs. I've got big calves, and I feel really proud of the legs that I used to really detest growing up because I've never had a thigh gap and never will. Now they're the legs that mean I never get injured, and I'm fast on the downhill, man. And people will overtake me on the flat, but you will never overtake me on the uphill or downhill. I am built for it. I'm like a little mule. And I know I've said this analogy before, but some people are like racehorses and they can just run and be really fast. I am not. I am a little mule. You put a pack on me and I'm going to go up and down like a little mountain goat, those mountains, and I'm not going to get hurt and I'm not going to do it fast. I'm just going to be enjoying the ride. So I think maybe that's why the trail suits me too, because where I can't run very fast, at least, I kind of make up for it in my sturdiness. And I really like that idea of, just taking it slow and enjoying the ride. Talking of taking it slow, my next tip is go slow. So trail running isn't about speed. Walking uphill or through tricky sections is perfectly okay. Enjoy the journey rather than rushing to the destination. And then the last point is safety first. Big one. Always let someone know where you are going. Share your location if you can. Pack essentials like a small first aid kit, a whistle, a fully charged phone, and learn the basic trail etiquette. So yield to hikers and uphill runners and leave no trace. So no wrappers, no nothing. Pick it all up after you. Obviously, being a woman and running in the outdoors and running at night and doing what I do, is there a sense of perhaps it's brazen bravery, perhaps it's a wee bit of foolishness, I'm not sure. I will say that, I cannot give specific safety advice to people out there because I don't live in your area. I have the incredible privilege of living in a really safe part of London where the scariest thing I'll see on a run is a deer. So I feel safe to run in the dark. I feel safe to run on the trails in the dark. Just make sure everyone knows where you are. Share your location with people. I think it's okay to feel nervous. I would encourage you not to feel afraid of the world. I think, strangely, I get a lot of messages about true crime. I don't watch true crime or anything. Maybe I'm naive and maybe that's my problem. But, I think just you have to put safety first. So, ask your local authorities, is this trail safe? Carry a whistle, whatever makes you feel safe and empowered, then you can do that. But again, I can't give specific advice because I don't know the trails that you run on, and I can say that Battersea Park and Richmond Park in London are not, they're just very common, well-trod areas. And for that, I am grateful. Of course, when I travel and I go to new places and I run on my own through jungles and things, I'm not really thinking about people. I'm more thinking about safety from animals, which is a whole different thing. And I'm lucky to be in a relationship where I'm really clued up on how to deal with dangerous animals like snakes, bears, alligators, that kind of thing. But again, I wouldn't advise that people copy what I do or... I take my life and I take my bravery into my own hands. And I think we all just need to make the decisions that keep us safe. So for you, if that means that, you know, you don't want to go to that big, scary, long trail that's a little bit more remote, then don't. You know, there is no pressure to be the bravest or be the silliest, or, you know, really make sure you put your safety and your comfort and your enjoyment first. You know, that the extremes that are seen online and the extremes that happen in this sport, it's a lot and it's overwhelming, and you don't need to do that to enjoy it. You know, there are perfectly wonderful trails in the cities, and perfectly wonderful trails in national parks, and you know, you can enjoy those without having to be stupid. And maybe sometimes I am a little stupid, so there we go. All right, so I wanted to talk about building confidence outdoors. And there is a wonderful quote with a lovely illustration of a wolf that says, "I am out in the woods looking for myself." I thought that was beautiful, because trail running really is about looking for yourself. And I've often thought, gosh, I just go and I run loops and I run loops and I run loops and I'm looping this trail. Where am I going? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And really, I'm looking for myself. That's what I'm doing. I'm out on the trail and I'm looking for myself. I'm looking for the answers. I'm looking for what I need to know and who I want to be. And yeah, that's a lovely way of looking at it, I think. But one of the best things about trail running is that it builds confidence, not just as a runner, but as someone who thrives in outdoor spaces. And here's some tips for how you can cultivate that confidence. You can start small, beginning with short runs on easy trails. As you build endurance and familiarity, gradually tackle more challenging routes. 2 is embrace the learning curve. You might stumble, you might fall, and that's okay. Every misstep is a chance to learn and improve. Practice mindfulness. Pay attention to your surroundings, your breathing, and how your body feels. This awareness not only enhances your experience, but also makes you more alert and prepared for the terrain. Number 4 is join a community. So running groups or online communities can offer support, motivation, tips, plus sharing the experience with others makes it even more rewarding. So I did a big documentary with Pure Sport, the sponsor of this podcast, and my favorite dudes. We did a big documentary all about the power of trail running, and we did a group trail run together through Richmond Park, which was the best afternoon of my life. So lovely meeting everyone. And we did a really long, 10K is actually a really long trail, and it was raining and it was muddy and we were covered in mud and we were all hugging, and we went up this like muddy hill climb, and we all looked at the view at the top, and it was just like we were little kids, like dancing and playing in puddles again. It was brilliant. And that kind of community is wonderful. And there are so many great running clubs that do trail running through all the parks in London, and I'm sure no matter where you are in the world, you can find one. So if you don't feel brave enough to go alone, perhaps you could find some people to go with, and it's a perfect way to make friends. It's a perfect way to make friends. But trail running isn't just about physical fitness, it's a gateway to connecting with nature. So a few ways that I like to deepen that bond is unplug. So leave headphones behind occasionally, and I listen to the natural soundtrack around me, birds chirping, wind rustling the leaves, babbling brooks. I do this especially on the Thames path where you can hear the water. And I just like listening to my breathing and footsteps and the birds and the animals and the people chattering. You know, it's so calming. Another thing I do is practice gratitude. So as I run, I think about what I'm grateful for in that moment. I say affirmations to myself while I'm running as well, because I find it to be a place where I am kind of like meditating. So, you know, I'm like, you're not a bad person, you're not a bad person, everything's fine, you're safe, you're okay, you're wonderful, this is brilliant. You know, I'm grateful for Cowboy, I'm grateful for the trail, I'm grateful to be able-bodied. You know, just repeating again and again. It's a lovely way to make it more meaningful. Another way is giving back. So participate in trail cleanups or volunteer for local conservation efforts. It's a great way to ensure these beautiful spaces remain accessible for future generations. So like I spoke about, initiatives like community runs that I do, or helping kids get outdoors, or helping just clear up your local trails, like Joe and his friends do a lot, is a wonderful way of feeling more connected. I wanted to delve into the science behind how nature enhances our happiness, and there's a growing field of research known as eco-psychology and environmental psychology. Here's an overview of what the studies reveal about the positive effects of nature on mental well-being. So number 1 is stress reduction. Your physiological response. Spending time in natural environments lowers levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, reduces blood pressure, and slows your heart rate. There's lots of study examples. If you want to read more, there's a 2019 study published in Frontiers in Psychology, found that spending just 20 minutes in nature significantly reduced cortisol levels. And it works because nature's calming sights and sounds engage our parasympathetic nervous system and helps the body to return to a state of rest, which I can attest to time and time again. If I am having a meltdown, Joe knows that he has to put me in the car and take me to the woods, and then I'm like, okay, everything's fine. I just needed to look at a tree. It improves your mood and emotional well-being, so it gives you a huge happiness boost. People who spend time in green spaces report higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction. Okay, I'm going to struggle with this, but biophilia hypothesis, which is a theory that suggests that humans have an innate affinity for nature, which explains why natural environments often evoke joy. We are nature. Positive distractions. So nature shifts attention away from negative thoughts and ruminations, providing relief from anxiety or sadness. It also increases your attention and focus. So cognitive benefits restore mental energy and reduces mental fatigue. Attention restoration theory, which I love, find this fascinating. Natural settings offer a soft fascination, like rustling leaves or flowing water, which gently engage the mind without overwhelming it. This allows the brain to recharge. So it's literally the antidote to TikTok. It's a soft fascination of like awesome proportions, but it's very calming, and it's things that you can look at and engage with that are not this constant color, flavor, payoff, and like, you know, need of like just everything all the time. You know, it's the antithesis of that, and I think that's why it's so wonderful for so many young people to make sure they're still getting into nature. And then of course reduction in depression and anxiety. Nature as therapy, which is known as ecotherapy or green therapy, involves structures, activity in natural settings. It's a natural antidepressant. Sunlight exposure boosts serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with happiness and calmness, which I think we all know that by now, that the sun just makes us happy. Living in the UK, we get like a week of sun a year. Hence why I'm always trying to leave this country. It also provides us this feeling of a connection to something bigger than us, which I really, really feel gives us that awe and wonder. Experience in nature, like standing at the edge of a vast canyon or gazing at a starlit sky, elicits feelings of awe, which have been linked to greater life satisfaction and humility. Gives me, and I'm sure other people, spiritual fulfillment. So many people report a sense of transcendence or spiritual connection when immersed in nature, which can foster a deeper sense of purpose. Because sometimes, if you're an existential person like I am, and everything has to have great meaning, and everything has to be, I have to think about things all the time, nothing can just be surface level, which is exhausting. But being in nature kind of slows that really overthinking mind down and just lets me be like, wow, I'm so small. Oh my gosh, look at this mountain, look at this canyon, look at the stars. I'm so small. Actually, it doesn't matter that much. You know, it does not matter that much. Look at this. Look at where I am. Look at this wonderful earth. So it really helps calm me down in that way. And I think a lot of people who deal with bad panic and anxiety, as I've had over the last like 6 months, it really is the medicine for that. It's the salve. So forest bathing is a Japanese practice, which is called Shinrin Yoku, which involves mindfully immersing yourself in a forest environment to absorb its calming effects. So, nature is a powerful, scientifically backed source of happiness and mental clarity, whether it's a stroll through the park, a hike in the mountains, or just sitting under a tree. Reconnecting with the natural world offers profound benefits for your mind, body, and soul. So if you can today, step outside, breathe deeply, and let nature work its magic. Now I wanted to do a segment on EMDR therapy and trauma. We're switching lanes. I've had a lot of coffee today, sorry guys. There's a quote that says, "You lack the courage to be consumed in flames and to become ashes, so you will never become new and never young again," which which is all about the bravery to try something new. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It was developed by Dr. Francine Shapiro in the late 1980s. The therapy's origins are rooted in a combination of serendipitous discovery and subsequent systematic research. So here's how it unfolded. Now, I'm going to preface this with EMDR therapy changed my life. I was really struggling with repressed trauma, which is what made breaking my addictions almost impossible. I went through two things in my teens and then in my early 20s that I was unable to process, and I had pushed down really far inside because they were so traumatic that I didn't know how to deal with them and I didn't know how to cope. And I tried everything. I tried CBT, I tried all of it. And EMDR, rapid eye movement, was the only thing that helped me move through these traumas because I was able to speak about them in a place that felt like I wasn't experiencing them, like I was watching them instead. So I wasn't having flashbacks or any like physical symptoms. I was just able to talk about them. So Dr. Shapiro, a psychologist, made an unexpected observation while walking in the park. She noticed that her distressing thoughts were less bothersome after her eyes moved rapidly back and forth as she scanned her surroundings. This observation led to her experiment, which intentionally moving her eyes while focusing on troubling thoughts, which seemed to reduce their emotional intensity. So without knowing it, back when I went for that very first walk when I was dealing with addiction and a little bit of PTSD, I was giving myself EMDR when I began to walk through the park. And I didn't know that I was, but moving through nature saved my life. And this is the science of why it did that. So Dr. Shapiro began formal research to explore whether this phenomenon could help others process distressing memories. So her early experiments involved having participants focus on traumatic memories while simultaneously engaging in eye movements guided by her hand. My therapist uses a light. Some people use a hand. And you're like this, you're watching it like this. The results showed that many individuals experienced a reduction in the emotional intensity of their traumatic memories, inspiring her to refine and formalize the process. So then she published these results in the Journal of Traumatic Stress in 1989. The study demonstrated significant reductions in PTSD symptoms after only a few sessions of what she initially called eye movement desensitization, later expanded to reprocessing, EMDR. So eye movements were the original method. Dr. Shapiro and other practitioners discovered that other forms of bilateral stimulation, for example, tapping, we've spoken about tapping before, or auditory tones, could achieve similar results. This broadened the therapeutic scope, making EMDR more adaptable to different clients' preferences and needs. Basically, it's a form of distraction for your brain that your eye or your body is experiencing, so you are able to process the trauma better. It's fascinating. This is why a lot of people you'll see, actually a few people ask me about tapping because I spoke about it in the episode all about rewiring binging. And tapping is something you can just do for yourself, and I do it on my chakras because I'm a hippie. And I'll be tapping like this, and I'll literally do it in public. I don't care anymore. I'm 31 and I'm really weird. So I'll just do this like that, or you can do it on your heart chakra, throat. A lot of people do it on their temples. It's just a little bit of a distraction, a little bit of a grounding experience when you are having a flashback, or maybe, I don't think it will work in a panic attack, but you can feel maybe a little bit of anxiety coming on. Just doing this and letting yourself be grounded in that moment really helps. So over time, she structured this therapy into an 8-phase protocol to ensure thorough treatment. I won't go through all of them, but if you want to research EMDR, it's fascinating to me. But her curiosity and scientific rigor transformed a serendipitous observation into a groundbreaking therapeutic approach, helping millions of people worldwide heal from psychological trauma. So literally, from a psychologist walking through nature and experiencing nature moving past her eyes, and her being able to think better about her traumatic thoughts and process them in a healthy way, a new therapy was born. And if you needed any solid scientific proof to get outside and move through nature, that is it. You can literally process your trauma better. It can heal your brain and mind through doing this, and it's free. You don't need to run. You can walk. And I would really encourage so many young people, you do not need to smoke it away or drink it away or buy it away or buy all these supplements or join the fancy gym or buy the matching gym clothes or whatever it is you think you need to be better. I am telling you, moving through nature is the answer. And I know it sounds woo-woo, and I know, yes, there are so many other amazing protocols in place and all of that, but if that's all you can manage and it's free, then get out there. I will also caveat that with, I am also really aware of the privilege that I have to live in a place that is clean and safe, and I have access to green spaces, and not everyone has that, and I am so sorry if you don't have access to that in safety or in cleanness. It breaks my heart, and I really wanted to acknowledge that privilege, because it's just, it's amazing that I've always had that, growing up. I grew up in Scotland, the Highlands, and now in London, where we have great parks that are really safe. So I'm going to end it there today. This is probably my favorite episode of the season. I really enjoyed this. Obviously you can tell I'm really passionate about this, which is why I've been yapping for over an hour. Let me know if you have any questions about trail running or being in nature. I'm always happy to answer. Drop me a DM, 9 Lives Podcast, or me, you know who I am. So I wanted to end with a poem, as always. I have 2 and I couldn't choose. The first is William Wordsworth, and the next is one that I wrote. So the first one is, I wandered lonely as a cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of the bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon the inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Beautiful. Okay, this is an original poem. It's called Run the Wild Path. Feet meet the earth, steady and true, a trail unfolds, bathed in morning dew. The whispering wind, the call of the trees, a journey begins where the soul feels free. Rocks and roots, a playful test, the climb and the descent, the body's quest. Breathe in rhythm, a heartbeat song, the trail invites, come run along. Sunlight flitters through leafy green, a dappled glow, a serene scene. Each step a pulse of life untamed, in natured arms no fear is named. The hill ahead a daunting climb, but strength emerges step by time. The summit reached, a view so wide, a reward for grit, a swelling pride. Mud on your shoes, sweat on your brow, the trails embrace the here and now. A stream to cross, cool waters flow, a moment of peace, the miles still grow. The forest hums, alive, awake, with every turn a memory to make. The echoes of the birds, the scent of pine, this winding path feels so divine. Trail running's more than just the stride, it's freedom felt, it's strength inside. The wild path, your truest friend, a journey of joy that has no end. All right, guys, I'll leave it there for this episode. Thank you so much for listening this week. Loads of love. Look after yourselves. Get outside. And I will speak to you soon.